أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحابته ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الكرام. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Now he's going into the treatment of the heart. So by now you should have basically gotten that there are three types of hearts: sahihun, sound heart; mayyitun, a dead heart; and maridun, a sick heart. And then from those there are three types. One's that the sahha is ghariba. From the diseased heart there's three types. One that the soundness is greater than the actual disease. The other is that the disease is greater. And the third is that they're about equal. And he mentioned that the one that the disease is greater and the one are equal are both in dangerous condition. And then he said how to know whether the heart is healthy or diseased by knowing the signs and symptoms, by knowing the etiology, and by knowing the desires and the aversions. And this is very consistent with medicine as well. In other words, outward medicine looks at this very similar thing. For instance, one of the signs of people that have diabetes is that they're very thirsty, they crave sugar, things like that. So they look at aversions and desires. So that's junuh al-nafs. And then he said there's three ways to treat the heart. The first one is himyat al-badan, which is some type of regime or diet, and hunger. And he mentioned, though, not to the point where you harm yourself. The second is istinshaq al-sidq, which is sahba, what the Turks call suhbat. Suhbat. They actually have a word in Turkish for that. You know, keeping company with good people. And that's inhaling the fragrance of truthfulness. And then the third is to actually use medicine, isti'mal al-dawa. And then he said that the dawa is tadhkar, tadhakkar. So the next section he goes on to explain why these three are. And he talked about what to remember. So what was the first thing? The stranger, ghurbatuka fi dunya. That was the first one. The alienation that you feel being in the world, even from your own soul. The second one was what? The struggle of the soul at the time of death. And the third one? Right. That you stand in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that for people that have wasted their lives away in vain pursuits, they'll be exposed on that day. So then he says, فَبِالتَّقَلُّلِ يَصْفُ قَلْبُهُ. By diminishing your appetites, your heart becomes purer, more lucid. وَبِمُخَالَطَةِ أَهْلِ الْخَيْرِ يَشْتَاقُ لُبُّهُ. And by keeping company with the people of good, your innermost core actually begins to gain yearning. For instance, people who spend a lot of time with musicians, they'll actually desire to take up a musical instrument. If you spend a lot of time with rich people, you'll actually desire to make money. The people you keep company with, you tend to actually desire to do the things that they do, if they're good at it. So wise guys desire to become mafia dons. I mean, this is the nature of company. So if you're in the company of the awliya, you actually begin to desire to achieve the states that they achieve. There's a desire to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبِالتِّذْكَارِ يَعِينُهُ رَبُّهُ. And through remembrance, Allah will actually help you. إِذْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يُعِينُ الْعَبْدَ عَلَى قَدْرِ نِيَّتِهِ. Because Allah helps the servant in accordance with his intention, the sincerity of the intention. So the greater your intention, the more help you get. Your intention increases by reminders. وَيَفْتَحُ لَهُ عَلَى قَدْرِ هِمَّتِهِ. And He will give you openings, futuhat. He'll give you spiritual openings based on your himma. And also intellectual openings. We were just mentioning Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda rahimahullah. He has a book on Sabr al-Ulama, about the patience that the scholars had in gaining their knowledge. And he mentioned that Ibn Sina read the book Metaphysics of Aristotle 50 times before he had his opening in it.
And the point is, it's himma. If you have himma in anything, the opening you get will be in accordance with it. And the same is true even you look at athletes, great athletes. There's natural talent, but then there's work. And there's plenty of people that have natural talent that don't do the work. And the same is true for great musicians. I saw a study done about great musicians, good musicians, and then mediocre musicians. And they did the average time that they practiced. And the greatest ones practiced far more than the other ones. So people, when they hear like a master pianist or something, they think it's some kind of gift. And there is a gift there, obviously a musical gift. But they don't see the 8 hours a day that that person's putting in 6, 7 days a week. And then the mediocre musician is practicing maybe 2 hours a day. So people literally, even in dunya, that's why I'm mentioning these things. I'm not telling you go practice piano 8 hours a day. I'm just using these as examples that even in the dunya, the openings come from the himma of the person. So spiritually, the same is true. Intellectually, the same is true. وَإِنَّمَا عَلَى الْعَبْدِ الْأَسْبَابِ وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتْحُ الْأَبْوَابِ. That what the servant has to do is take the means to the openings. But we leave the openings to Allah. What you have to do is take the means. So you want to master tajweed, you have to practice. You don't say, Allahumma aftah alayya, and then you don't do any work. No, you do the work and you say, Allahumma aftah alayya. And then he says, فَإِذَا نَفَرَتَ النَّفْسُ عَنِ التِّذْكَارِ وَقَصَّرَ الْقَلْبُ فِي وُجُوهِ الْإِسْتِبْصَارِ فَتَعَمَّدَ الْأَسْبَابَ الْمُذَكِّرَةِ وَاقْصِدْ الْأُمُورَ الْمُقَوِّيَةَ الْمُفَكِّرَةِ. So now he says, if the nafs has aversion to being reminded, because we do. We don't like reminders all the time. We feel uncomfortable with it. Or you see that the heart is neglectful about these means of bringing about inner sight. Like dhikr of Allah, the awrad, things like that. قراءة القرآن بالتدبر. فتعمد الأسباب المذكرة. Then you have to force yourself to do those means that are going to remind you. وَقْصِدْ الْأُمُورَ الْمُقَوِّيَ الْمُفَكِّرَةِ. And then intend to do those things that strengthen you and strengthen your reflection. And now he's going to give you those. So everybody understand that? He's saying that if you're finding difficulty, here's what you have to do now. In other words, he gave you 3 things to do. But if you don't want to do those 3 things, you're finding your nafs isn't inclining towards them, now he's going to give you 3 more things. أولها وجود الخلوة مع الفراغ وإن بلا ذكر. The first one is to go into retreat, a leisurely retreat. By leisure, the older meaning of it in the English language. Faragh is leisure in Arabic. But leisure doesn't mean wasting your time like it means now. Leisure now means vacation thing. Faragh means that you don't have anything to do. You're not preoccupied with the world. So it's a time, you have leisure time to study, to do things. He's saying, go into a state of khalwa, a leisurely khalwa, retreat, even if you're not doing dhikr. Even if you're not doing dhikr. Now this is obviously somebody who's serious. In other words, there's people that they go alone and then they just watch television. That's what he's not saying. Because if you go and turn on the TV, you're not alone, you're with the shayateen. So he's saying, to literally be in a state of khalwa is a useful thing because it reminds you of your wahsha. You're forced to look at your nafs. The second, الثاني, زيارة المقابر خليا وإن بلا فكر. Visiting the graves alone. Visiting graveyards alone, even if you're not reflecting. Just being in the graveyards, even if it's without reflection, is going to have an effect on you. الثالث, the third one, لزوم الاستغفار وإن بلا حضور والصلاة على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في جميع الأمور. Most of the ulama of this science give these are the 2 things in the end of time. Istighfar والصلاة على النبي. So he's saying do istighfar, astaghfirullah, and do prayer on the Prophet ﷺ. Now the reason for that is, first of all, istighfar, what is the first thing you say when you finish your prayer? Astaghfirullah. I mean, why would you do that when you just finished your prayer? You just did an act of ibadah. Why would you say astaghfirullah? The first thing you say. You just did an act of qurba to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why are you saying astaghfirullah? You should be saying alhamdulillah, right? So why are you saying astaghfirullah? Naqs, because of the deficiency of your prayer. There's a recognition that your prayer was not with complete hudur, that you may have made some mistakes in it, not even aware. So there's an awareness of your deficiency, of what you're being asked to do. And this is why istighfar, when the nafs is in this state of deficiency, then saying a lot of istighfar is beneficial for the nafs. Astaghfirullah. Even if it's without any hudur, just saying it on your tongue is a good thing to do. وَصَلَى عَلَى النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now the thing about prayer on the Prophet, and really this is one of the greatest things about it. There are many. The benefits of prayer on Prophet, some of them, they wrote books just on that benefit. I've seen one book that had about 60 benefits of prayer on the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. One of them was that your passing the sirat is made easy. Because the prayer on the Prophet will come on the Yawm al-Qiyamah when you have to pass across the bridge to the other side, and it will help you across. It's a hadith. It draws you closer to the Prophet ﷺ. One of the things about prayer on the Prophet is the more you do it, you will be forced to love the Prophet ﷺ. In other words, love will enter into your heart merely by the prayer. It's one of the benefits of the prayer. You increase in love and yearning for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It purifies the heart. It's considered a sheikh when there's no sheikh. And this is well known. Sidi Ahmed Zarruq said, when there's no sheikh, prayer on the Prophet purifies the heart. So doing a lot of prayer on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَةُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِي. Both Allah and He seconded with His angels do salah ala nabi. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Pray on him and do taslim. So this is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a fard to pray on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. At least, according to the Malikis, at least once in your life. According to the Imam Shafi'i's madhab, you have to pray every prayer. In Maliki madhab, it's mustahab. In the Shafi'i madhab, it's a wajib. So then he says, and do it in all matters. Prayer on the Prophet. فَإِنَّهُ صَلَوَاتُ اللَّهِ وَسَلَامُ عَلَيْهِ قَدْ قَالَ. He said himself, زُورُوا الْمَقَابِرِ فَإِنَّهَا تُذَكِّرُ الْآخِرَةِ. Visit the graves because they will remind you of the Akhirah. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ. Multiplicity, takathur can mean yatakathiru. It means to collect a lot of things. But it can also mean Dhuhur al-kathra is one of the meanings of it. At-takathuru means that multiplicity, seeing all this dunya, all this multiplicity out here. Alhaakumu takathur. It's got you preoccupied. You're not thinking about ultimate matters. Wanting to acquire wealth, wanting to acquire position, wanting to climb the social ladder. All of these things has you preoccupied. But when you visit the graves, suddenly you're reminded, that's where I'm headed. That's where I'm headed, to the grave. So it's one of the benefits. And our Prophet ﷺ used to visit the graves. He visited once a week, he used to go and visit the graveyard, at least. And so there's people that haven't visited a graveyard in years. In years. They haven't visited a graveyard. If you have a Muslim graveyard in your area, it's a good thing to go and visit it and reflect on it. And make dua for them. Give them salam. السلام عليكم يا دار قوم المؤمنين أنتم السابقون ونحن اللاحقون. You preceded us and we're following you, inshaAllah. And that's a hadith, inshaAllah. The inshaAllah there is one of the interesting points. تأدبا مع الله سبحانه وتعالى. I mean, death is muhattam. But لا تقول لي إني فاعل شيئا لا تقول لي شيء غدا إلا أن يشاء الله. Don't say you're going to do anything tomorrow except that you have istithna. So it's just تأدبا مع الله. I mean, death is muhattam. No doubt about it. And then he said, وَمَنْ لَزِمَ الْإِسْتِغْفَارِ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ. The hadith, وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام, مَنْ لَزِمَ الْإِسْتِغْفَارَ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مِنْ كُلِّ هَمٍّ فَرَجًا ومن كل ضيق مخرجا ورزقه من حيث لا يحتسب. Whoever is continuous in his istighfar, asking forgiveness, Allah will make for every anxiety that he has some release of it. In other words, He'll remove that anxiety. And for every constraint that he has, some difficulty, He'll give him some outlet or way out of it. And He will provide from him from where he's not expecting. So those are the benefits of istighfar. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام الصلاة علي نور في القلب ونور في القبر ونور على الصراط وهي أمحق للذنوب من الماء البارد للنار. And that's one of the few hadiths that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq relates. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, if you look in the books of hadith, he rarely relates any hadith. And that was related from him. رضي الله عنه. That prayer on the Prophet ﷺ, prayer upon me, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, is light in the heart. It's nurun fil qalb. It's nurun fil qabr. It's light in the grave. Wa nurun ala sirat. It's light on the sirat, which is what you go across to get to paradise, and the hellfire is under it. And it is greater in its extinguishing wrong actions than cold water is for fire. فإن تأبت نفسك على ذلك وامتنعت من هذه المسالك إما لثقل الأمر عليها أو وجود شغل بالدنيا فاعلم أن الأول آية الغباء والخذلان ودليل ضعف اليقين والإيمان والثاني غلبة الهوى عليك والشغف بما هو قائم لديك فلك في الأول علاجان. This is such an amazing book. I mean, it's just so scientific the way he's doing this. So he said, now if you're having problems with that, you won't do that. Your nafs is refusing to do that. It won't follow this pathway. Either because it's too weighty for the nafs, or because you're too preoccupied with your dunya. So there's one of the two. Either I'm too preoccupied, I've got my job 8 hours a day, I have to commute 2 hours there and back. Or it's a weighty matter for the nafs. The nafs doesn't want to think about death, it doesn't want to think about its wrong actions, and it's not inclined to pray on the Prophet ﷺ. So he says, as for the first one, in other words, that it's too heavy for the self, he said, no, that's a sign of stupidity. Or it's a sign of ghayb. There's two texts. One of them says ghayb, the other says... In any case, it's both the same. It's a sign that you're in error. With khidlan. Khidlan is the opposite of tawfiq. In the Arabic language, you have tawfiq, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what you want and what Allah wants is the same. That's called tawfiq. So when you want something that's good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitates it for you. That's tawfiq. Khidlan is the opposite. It's when you want something that's bad and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala leaves you to it. So he's saying that if you don't want to do those things, it's a sign that you're in deep trouble. And he said it's also a proof of the weakness of your certainty and your faith. As for the second, in other words, being preoccupied with the world, he said that is due to غَرَبَةَ الْهَوَىٰ عَلَيْكَ, that your own caprice and your own desires have overcome you. وَالشَّغَفْ بِمَا هُوَ قَائِمٌ لَدَيْكَ, and love, preoccupation with what He Himself has taken upon for you. In other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of your dunya. Don't think that means that you don't go out and work and do that. It's not darwasha. That's not what he's saying. But what it means is, when this has become your preoccupation, because there's people think about dunya all the time. Even when they get off work, they're still thinking about how they can make more money or something like that. He's saying, you're wasting your time, because those things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of you. Just do what you have to do and don't worry about being obsessed with that. So then he says, فَلَكَ فِي الْأَوَّلِ عِلَاجَانِ. As for the first one, there's two treatments for it. Everybody got this? You can make a nice little diagram. Do this. If that doesn't work, do this. If that doesn't work, do this. And that's the way he's working, because he wants to help us cure ourselves. And he's exhausting all the possibilities. So, As for the first one, which means you're finding it too difficult to do, and that's a result of either stupidity and forsakenness, that Allah has forsaken you, or weak yaqeen, certainty, and iman, faith, he said that has two cures. One of them, التحامل على الأمور المذكورة وإشغال النفس بالأمور المشكورة من غير التفات لفائدة هذا العمل ولا كماله ولا نظرا لكثرته ولا استقلاله. فإن ذلك يلفتها شاءت أم أبت ويظهرها عما عليه استقرت وربت. So the first one is that you force التحامل على الأمور المذكورة. In other words, you do it in spite of yourself. Even if you're not attracted to it, just like anything, there's people that they don't want to go on a diet. They're overweight. Their doctor tells them, look, you're going to kill yourself if you do this. That's what he's saying. Even though you don't want to do it, you have no natural inclination to do it, you have to force yourself to do it. So that's what he's saying. Even though you don't want to do it, you have to force yourself to do it. And then preoccupy the self in those things that are mashkura. وَكَانَ سَعْيُهُ مَشْكُورًا. That your sa'i is mashkur from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your effort is mashkur. So you do things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us to do and tells us that He'll reward us for it. من غير التفات لفائدة هذا العمل ولا كماله ولا نظرا لكثرته ولا استقلاله. And don't concern yourself with the benefit. Don't think about, look at it just as khalas. I have to do this. Don't think about what you're going to get out of it. He's just saying just do it as an exercise. It's just like you decide to jog every day. Or, your dentist tells you you have to floss because you're going to lose your teeth. So it's just something you have to do every day. Look at it like that. Don't think of the benefit. Just think, I have to do this. وَلَا لِكَمَالِهِ. And don't look at whether you're doing it in the best way or not. Concern yourself simply with doing it. Don't get obsessed with I'm not doing it right, I'm not doing it long enough. وَلَا نَظَرًا لِكَثْرَتِهِ. And don't look at how much you're doing. I'm not doing enough. I'm doing too much. Just do it and be consistent in it. وَلَا إِسْتِقْلَالِهِ. You might be doing other things. Just feel that you have to do it. No, even if you, like every day, you drive in your car, that's when you do it. You say, I'm going to do 100 prayer on the Prophet ﷺ. You do it when you drive in your car. فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ يَلْفِتُهَا شَأْتَمْ أَبَتْ. Because that will cause it to come to its senses, whether it likes it or not. Whether the nafs likes it or not, this activity will force it to look at these things. And also it will preoccupy it from what it has been accustomed to and grown up doing. So in other words, yourself will actually become habituated to something that preoccupies it from what it was doing before, which is your ghafla. Basically what he's saying is this works. The second is تكرار العقائد المجردة عن البرهان الواضحة التبيان درسا وتلاوة حتى تتمكن صورتها في النفس فيتجرد وجه المعتقد ويرتفع الوهم واللبس. What he's saying is that you have to repeat this stuff over and over without the proofs, without all of the commentary. درسا وتلاوة, in study and also just simply reciting it. حتى تتمكن صورتها في النفس, until it's completely fixed in yourself. So in other words, what you do is you need to study these things, these meanings, until they're completely fixed in you. So you know. It's like you do the diagram and you study it until you know. Okay, he said do this. When that happens, do this. If that doesn't happen, do this. It's firmly fixed. In other words, what he's telling you is get to know this material really well. Get to know your deen really well. Get to know what we're taught about reality really well. When tribulations happen, you don't get upset by them. One of the signs of somebody who doesn't have strong iman is when everything goes wrong, they fall apart. Because who made everything go wrong? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nobody else. Why did He make it go wrong? One of two reasons. Because you were doing stuff wrong, and now He's pulling the carpet out from under you in order that you can stop in your tracks and ask yourself, what was I doing that Allah did this to me? That's one reason. The other reason is He's elevating you in degrees. Those are the only two possibilities. He's either calling attention to your stupidity so that you can say, Astaghfirullah, I brought this all on myself. And that's what you should say. Or He's giving you tribulation in order to raise you up and elevate you. Those are the only two possibilities. So why are you getting upset? Both scenarios are good. One of them is putting you back on the right track, and the other one is ensuring that not only are you on the right track, but you're improving. Because the people of the greatest tribulation are the prophets. And then those closest to them, the awliya. So when difficulties happen to you, you say, Subhanallah, it's from Allah. Whereas somebody who's in a state of ghafla, in heedlessness, they don't recognize that. So He's saying, really come to learn our aqa'id, what we believe in, how we understand, how we see the world. Because this is going to help you in this work. فَبِذَلِكَ تَنْتَعِشُ الْقُوَى وَيَظْهَرُ مِنَ الْحَقِيقَ مَا يَنْدَفِعُ بِهِ الْهَوَى. Because in that way, you're going to be energized. Your strengths are going to be energized. They're going to become lively. And reality will manifest that is going to protect you from your hawa and your caprice. إِذْ لِكُلِّ إِنسَانٍ وَإِنْ ضَعُفَ لَا بُدَّ مِنْ جُزْئِيَّةٍ يقوى فيها إيقانه إذا مسها التكرار تأكدت معانيها ولاحت مبانيها فافهم أو فليفهم. Because for every human being, even if he's a weak human being, there is a way of breaking things down to where his certainty will increase. It'll get stronger. And this is through repetition. Because through repetition, meanings become confirmed and the substance of that meaning becomes manifest. So understand this. That's what he's saying. In other words, what he's saying here is by repetition, because every human being, even if they're weak by nature, when you repeat things and break them down, you get stronger in your understanding of them. You see, you can't learn mathematics all at once. You start with 1 plus 1 is 2, 1 plus 2 is 3. That's what little children start with. We all started there at one time. And then before you know it, you're doing x squared plus y squared plus 2x minus 3x. You're doing things that to the child make no sense whatsoever. But you've progressed in that way. And you've done it through repetition. That's the only way you arrived at it. So that's what he's saying. The only way that you're going to increase, even if you're weak, is through repetition. Is through repetition. وأما وجود الشغل وعدم الفراغ فعلة لا تسلم ولا تساغ لأنك إما أن تكون مشغولا بما فيه شائبة حق كطلب العلم أو بما فيه لوازم صدق كالقيام بحق من يوجب الحكم أو من يوجبه الحكم أو بما فيه حظ عاجل أو فضل آجل وكل ذلك لا ينافي تحصيل الفكر والتذكار لعدم استغراقه أجزاء الليل والنهار. So what he says here now is, as for your preoccupation and your lack of leisure, this is an excuse that is unacceptable and unpalatable. Because either you're preoccupied with something that has some element of the truth in it, like seeking knowledge, and there's a danger in it, there's shawa'ib in it, because seeking knowledge, one of the dangers of seeking knowledge is arrogance, elitism, vanity, egoism. I mean, there's a lot of problems that go with that. So either you're preoccupied with something like that, or بما فيه لوازم صدق, what by its nature necessitates sincerity, like doing what you're supposed to be doing in some hukm shar'i that's obligatory for you to do, and it either has some immediate benefit or it has some later benefit. And none of that should negate the ability to reflect and to be reminded. لِعَدَمِ اسْتِغْرَاقِهِ أَجْزَاءَ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ. He's getting to a point here that really many people ignore. And what he's saying here is that no matter who you are, you have time. That's all he's saying. He's saying, don't fool yourself. Don't tell me I'm too busy. Because I saw you the other day sitting down there drinking a coffee for a half hour, talking with your friends. I saw you playing ping pong. I saw you reading the newspaper. You went to a movie last week, 2 hours of your time. Or 3 going there and coming back. Or 4 or 5 because you paid $10 to get in and you only get paid $5 an hour. So there's 2 hours that you have to work to pay for the movie. So what he's saying here is, quit fooling yourself. You have time, but you've chosen not to utilize your time. That's what he's telling us. He's saying, don't delude yourself. That's why whenever you hear people say, oh, I don't have time, it's always a lie. Always. And it's interesting, Marcus Aurelius, in his introduction to meditation, he says, one of the things I learned from my teacher Frederick, I think it was Frederick the Grammarian. He said, never use the excuse of preoccupation in an avoidance of responsibilities. It's a beautiful statement. He learned that from a teacher he had. Don't ever say, I'm too preoccupied to do what I should be doing. Because you'll find you're often preoccupied with things you don't need to be doing. And he mentioned that at the end of the book. He says, don't do anything unless it's a necessity. Even if it's mandub. Because there's always things that are fard to do. And if you're doing a mandub and you can be doing a fard, then you've got your priorities wrong. This is called triaging in medicine. If somebody comes into a hospital and their arm's been ripped off by a machine and another person's saying they have a headache, the doctor doesn't start treating the guy with the headache. He has to take care of the person that's going to die. Even if it means the other person wait. And that's the same with anything. You learn to prioritize things. Where you put Allah and His Messenger on your list of priorities is going to determine how sincere you are. Because there's a lot of Muslims, Allah and His Messenger are simply not at the top of their list. They have at the very top, dunya. And then family. Some of them, they're better than the other ones, will have family on the top. And then dunya. But generally it's going to be one or the other. And then leisure time. I mean, there's people that spend a lot of time on their physical bodies. And I'm always amazed at these people who sculpt their bodies. I mean, they literally sculpt their bodies. And they learn all these techniques to get one small muscle so it gets, right? Oh no, you have to do a little twist there, to get your... And then they never concern themselves with their inner character. Actually changing their akhlaq, their morals. It's an amazing thing. Because the body is fani. It's just going to get old, and no matter how hard you try, you can't keep it up. Marilyn Monroe said gravity gets all of us in the end. Doesn't matter how beautiful you are. Gravity's going to pull it all down. The intelligent person, morals, that gets better. It should get better. You see, the virtue is something that you can continue to develop until you die. Whereas the physical things, at a certain point, it's downhill. So then he says, وَإِنْ أَمْكَنَ الْإِسْتِغْرَاقُ فَهُوَ ذَاهِبٌ بِالْحَقِيقَةِ أو فهو ذاهب بالحقيقة إلى المستغرق فيه ولا يصح ثبوت الحق مع ما ينفيه. So he's saying, if indeed you did spend all of your time in this preoccupied state, then in fact you're taking the reality to what you're preoccupied in, and from that point of view, the haqq cannot become firmly established because of what you're negating by it. In other words, the things you're leaving by not prioritizing, by not doing these things. He says, وَلَكِنْ هُنَا مُعَالَجَاتٌ ثَلَاثٌ. There's 3 treatments now. Going again. أولها أن تختلس من ساعات ليلك ونهارك ساعة تخلو فيها بنفسك وتنظر في يومك وأمسك وتلاحظ هجوم الموت ولوازم رمسك. والثاني أن لا يمكن ذلك لتمكن التعب السابق والشغب اللاحق، فتختلس من الأيام يوما في الجمعة أو يومين، وفي الشهر 3 ونحوها تجعلها عليك كالدين. الثالث أن يتعذر ذلك عليك ولا تقدر عليه لغلبة ما لديك، فيكون مرة في السنة وليس وراءها حالة مستحسنة، لأن الله تعالى قد ذكرنا بالجمعة ونحوها، وندبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم للتذكر في يومها بالترغيب في الإنصات وكثرة السلام عليه والصلاة، ورغبنا في صيام يوم من أيامها، وجعل التوقي في الأمور من حقيقة أحكامها. So now he's saying he's going to give you 3 more mu'alajat. I mean, he's saying, look, if you can't do any of this, I'm going to take it down to the last stage here. And there's nothing beyond this. This is what he's saying. The first one, take some portion of your day and your night. 1 sa'a. And sa'a here means a portion of time. It doesn't necessarily mean 60 minutes like an hour. Take 1 portion where you're alone with yourself and you look at what you did today and what you did yesterday. So this is called muhasaba. You just look, what did I do today? What did I do for my deen? What did I do for my heart? What did I do for my family? What did I do for my parents? وَتُلَاحِظُ هُجُومَ الْمَوْتِ, and reflect on death's preparation for you. Death is preparing to attack you. Reflect on that. That death is lurking somewhere, ready to attack you. يُهَاجِمُكَ. وَلَوَازِمْ رَمْسِكَ. تُلَاحِظُ لَوَازِمَ رَمْسِكَ. What the grave entails. Shaykh Ibn al-Habib said, تزود أخي للموت إنه نازل ولا تطيل الأمال فيقسو لك القلب وفكر في. He said, prepare for your death, my brother. Prepare for your death, my brother, and don't extend your hopes, because your heart will become hard. If you think that, oh, I've got plenty of time. وواذب على الفكر المعين على الجد والسارع إلى الأعمال فالعمر يذهب. And be constant in your reflection on this reflection of death and the seriousness of death, and quickly hasten to actions because your life is dissipating. I mean, this is fiqh. All these shuyukh are telling us the same thing. In fact, it's interesting that the Buddhists say that the most powerful of all meditations in order to change the behavior of a human being is the universal meditation of death. They have that in their tradition, that if you will really take time to reflect on death, nothing will force you to take your life into account quicker than the fact that you're mortal. And most people don't reflect on death. It's really interesting. People do not reflect on death. And the Hindus, I'm not quoting all this stuff, I mean, but it's just interesting that this stuff is universal. The Hindus say that the strangest thing in existence is in one of their, I think it's the Rig Veda. The strangest thing in existence is people see death all around them, and yet no one believes that it's coming to them. It's a strange thing about human beings. They can see death all around them. They see people drop dead, and they never think that one day it's coming to them. So that's what he's reminding us. That if you do this, it's going to have an effect on you. That's the first thing. الثاني إلا يمكن ذلك. If you're not capable of doing that, you can't do that. It's too hard. لتمكن التعب السابق. Because of the previously mentioned exhaustion, that you're just too burnt out in your life. والشغب اللاحق. And because you're preoccupied with the world. فتختلس من الأيام يوما في الجمعة أو يومين. Then at least steal a day out of all these days of the week, one day in the week to do this exercise. Just one day. Or 2 days. But just take a day out of the week. وفي الشهر ثلاثا. Or take 3 days out of the month. وتجعلها عليك كالدين. And make it like a debt that you have to pay. Think about this, people, really. He's giving you exercises. They're spiritual exercises. What he's saying is, look, if you have a calendar on your wall, put there 3 days. Put there. Reflect on these 3 days. One of the things you can do is make them days that you fast in. It's encouraged to fast 3 days a month. So make 3 days that you fast, and then make a promise with yourself that you're going to use those days to reflect on your life, on where you're going, on what you're doing, what this is about, what you want to do with your life, what you want to make of yourself. Just take that time. And then he says, now if you're not even able to do that, because وَلَا تَقْدُرُوا عَلَيْهِ بِغَلَبَةِ مَا لَدَيْكَ, because you're so overwhelmed, فَيَكُونُ مَرَّةً فِي السَّنَةِ. Make the day of Arafah once a year. Just once a year. Do this. Seriously, believe it or not, there are people that have not done this, what he's saying. They haven't thought about their lives in 10, 15 years. I guarantee you there are people that literally have not thought, فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are you going? Where are you going? People have not thought that question. They haven't thought about death. Really, there's people that have, you can say death. Real experience of death. It's an experience that you can't forget. If you have faced death like a gun in your face, or seen somebody killed right in front of you. I mean, I was in London with a man, and he took me to see this slideshow because he wanted to do some slideshows on Islam, and he wanted to show me the potential of what they call multi-image media. And there was a slideshow in London on the history of London. They had a lot of different slides coming in at once. It was very powerful, waham, to watch. But we went in, we watched, I think it was an hour or something like that. And we came out. Whenever you go in and see like movies or cinema, it's such an artificial thing because it's magic and you've been bewitched for 2 hours or something. You come out and you have to get used to coming back into reality. And we just come out. And I was standing on the corner and I saw this young man. And the interesting thing about it is I literally noticed the man because he was very striking. He was a striking young man. He was probably like about 24, 25, dressed very well. He had a suit and a tie on. And he was a striking person. And I just looked at him. So I saw this man step onto the curb. And suddenly this taxi tried to cut in front of another car and knocked him down right in front of me. And he fell back, and it was all almost like slow motion. He fell back and hit his head on the sidewalk. And he started shaking. And it was like watching a sheep whenever you kill a sheep. And they go into that shaking. He went into that shaking. And then literally, you could feel the ruh being taken from him. He went... The Christians call that giving up the ghost. And that's what happened. And that happened right in front of me. And everybody was looking at him. I mean, this man in the prime of his youth. And he had just died. And I looked over at the taxi driver and he was like this on his wheel. He just had his head on because now he's in a state. He has to live with this. Because all he was trying to do was cut in front of somebody, save a few seconds. and he took a man's life. But the point is that at that moment, I almost passed out. Literally, I almost physically passed out because it was so powerful. And we couldn't do anything. There was nothing you could do. He was dead. And somebody covered him with a coat. Took his coat off and covered him. And they went and called. And I just went and I sat down. And we were just, because that was haqq. I mean, we came from waham to reality. That is real. What just happened was reality. That was real. There was nothing false about what just happened. That was real. And then when I worked in a hospital, I saw a lot of people die. I mean, I saw people die. And some people, they died. It was horrible to watch them die because they didn't want to die. I literally watched a woman, she died of respiratory failure because she gotten lung cancer, and she died cursing the tobacco companies and singing tobacco jingles from the 1930s and 40s. She would sing the jingle. It was like Chesterfield or something. And then she would say, "Those liars, those damn liars." So death is a powerful thing. And you can actually experience death in yourself. You can actually experience it. If you do meditation of death, you can actually experience your mortality. And in doing that, it causes you to really assess your life and where you're at and what you're going to do. Because most people are wasting their lives and then they have nadama. You just have remorse and regret. Because once you die, you can't come back. And the only thing you want to come back to do is right actions. You don't want to come back. Nobody says on their deathbed, "I wish I watched more Gilligan's Island," or "I wish I..." They don't say that. "I wish I watched more movies. Oh, I didn't get to see that Oscar-winning film, that great film with Katharine Hepburn. I missed that." They don't think that. Nobody thinks that. That, "Oh, I wish I spent more time at the office." I guarantee you, nobody's ever said that on their deathbeds. What they say is, "I wish I would have gone to the masjid more. I wish I would have learned more Quran. I wish I would have done more charity work. I wish I would have helped more people. I wish I would have had better manners." I mean, I visited a man on his deathbed at Stanford University, dying of cancer. He was almost dead. And he used to come to my khutbah at this mosque. And he told me that he always hoped that he would be able to spend time with me. And here he was dying, and I came to visit him. I didn't know him. And he knew me just from the khutbah. Driving there, one of the people told me that he said this man was the most argumentative person he ever met. That's what he said about him. He said this man was the most argumentative person he ever met in his life. He argued with everybody. And when I went to see him and visit him, he was so sweet. And this thing he said to me, he said, "You know, the only thing I regret about my life is all the arguments I had." And he said, "I wish I could go to every single person and ask their forgiveness." That's what he told me. He said that's the only thing he really regretted, that he used to argue with people. And he realized it's all nuts. It's just a waste of time. All these things. You're dealing with psychology. And when you're looking at infinity, all these things, all your fights in your mosque about who should be president and who should be... all this stuff, it's just suddenly, it's all just waham. These are archetypal personalities that are manifesting their pathology on the arena of life. That's all it is. It's not really about truth. It's not about I'm right, you're wrong. Right? That's what it's really about. It's not about I want the truth to show up. No, I want to prove my point. And that's the beauty of doing this type of meditation, is you start realizing the futility of that route. جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله. جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله. جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.